world was young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen.
Then with a crash came a great ringing shout. Ra, whom, ra.
3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie.
It's talking about Tolkien, Ben.
It is talking about Tolkien, Nate. It is
Book 2 of Fellowship of the Ring, Chapter 2, The Council of Exposition.
I sat down to really go through and note take on this one.
And it took you 7 hours to complete.
It took me a good, I read it and then I went back and I was like, okay, now what do I want to take notes on? And I went back through and I started probably 3 hours ago just because I wanted to be ready for recording. And I didn't finish.
Wow.
I was sitting there wondering, could this conceivably be the first talking about Tolkien 2-parter? I don't know. There's so much here.
It's a very long chapter.
Yeah. It is let's see, 268 to 304.
Yeah. This is one I started reading in advance, and then Nate's Nightmare November happened. I put it down, and I didn't finish it until today.
Really?
Yeah. I read about half, and then I read about the other half today.
Okay. You're the summary boy. I imagine this is going to devolve pretty quickly into discussion. I don't think there's going to be an after part to this discussion where we talk about it because it's just throughout. I would say the most lore dropping chapter perhaps in the entirety of Lord of the Rings. I don't think you ever get more deep cuts than this.
Yeah, so Council of Elrond. The Great Council is being called, Ben. Sam is also there.
Yeah, they kind of just forgot he was there.
Whoops.
Yep.
You've got Glorfindel. You've got Gloin. You've got Strider. Gimli. Elrond's sons. Galdor from the Grey Havens on errand from Círdan the Shipwright. I don't know who either of those two people are.
I believe it's Círdan the Shipwright.
Whatever.
If you're reading Elvish, I think a C is always hard.
That's one thing the elves and me have in common, you know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
Círdan the Shipwright? You don't know who Círdan the Shipwright is?
No.
Oh,
is he the guy who builds the ships and sends you to your everlasting paradise in Coward Land?
He is
where all the babies flee.
I believe Círdan is, if not the oldest, then one of the oldest elves in Middle-earth. He's the only elf old enough to have a beard.
Oh my god. I think that's sacrilege, right?
He has a beard, and he also used to be a ring bearer. He was...
Is he the guy who gave Gandalf his ring?
He is the guy who gave Gandalf his ring.
Oh my god.
Because Gandalf arrived at his dock.
Who is Galdor?
Galdor is... I don't actually know. I guess he's just there representing...
Just some guy.
Yeah, he's pretty high up in the Grey Havens bureaucracy.
Wait, you said
there.
Gandalf arrived at his dock. So did they sail on a boat?
Yeah.
Oh,
boat.
Okay. For some reason, I thought they... Now, that makes a lot more sense than just falling from the sky meteorite style like they're Diablo 3 or something.
I think you might be confused because that's how Gandalf arrives, I think, in the Rings of Power.
Okay.
Spoilers for the Rings of Power.
I haven't watched the Rings of Power, but I'm sure that checks out. I'm sure that's how they envisioned it.
I got spoilers for the Rings of Power. There's apparently a stranger And everybody wonders who he is. And then Tom Bombadil's like, "You're Gandalf." I
I
saw that
think
scene.
Gandalf does have he gets his name. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's okay. So I saw one scene of the Rings of Power. I didn't mean to. Somebody like posted a clip on Instagram Threads, and it just happened to come across my feed, and it was a callback to the movie where Gandalf says, "Yes, Gandalf. That's what they used to call me." I think that line's in the book too, but in the Rings of Power, he goes, "Gandalf. That's what they're going to call me." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a weird thing to say." Like, I don't.
It's like when
You're
Han
trying.
Solo is like, "Ah, I don't have a family. I'm here solo." Wait a minute. Crazy idea. That
Yeah.
could be my last name. And it's like, that there's more important things to explore in a prequel than like how did we get your name and your stupid costume? You
Well, and
know?
also that's not like, I don't know. That's not the only name Gandalf has either. Like, there's a whole thing where he's like, in the north they call me Gandalf, in the dwarves call me Tarkun, uh, in the barely remembered west my name was Olorin, and like he goes on, like he has many names to many people. That's yeah. Anyway, that's Kieran. We're gonna be here for a long time if we get stuck on that.
Yeah, and then there's some other guy who's sitting apart from the rest of them, who's possibly some sort of huge asshole who looks very Sean Bean like he's gonna maybe die in this at some point.
Like he's maybe the only one.
He's the only one who will die. Yeah, except Gandalf, but he gets to come back.
Well, Boromir gets to go party with God.
Question mark. Nobody
Yeah,
knows.
nobody really knows. Manwë might know. Mandos probably knows. We'll talk
So
about that.
so everyone's gonna take their turn, kind of telling about their corner of the world, right? And it's like it starts out with like, man, my kingdom is fucked. Situation's dire. And then someone else would be like, whoa, you think your situation is bad? Let me tell you about my kingdom is even worse. And then eventually it will end in someone being like, where's Saruman? That guy could really help us out right about now. We could really benefit from his wisdom and guidance. And Gandalf is like, ooh.
All right, let's go in
That's
order. Yeah, that's the
so.
gist. Yeah.
So first, three dwarves walk into a bar, except the bar is Moria, and Moria is a goblin shithole. Uh, they went there. We'll find out later in the chapter. One of the reasons they went there was to find one of the dwarven rings. It was Thorin's grandfather had that ring, and he gave that ring, Gandalf will reveal, to Thrain, and then Thrain gets kind of kidnapped by the necromancer and tortured to death, and that is the end of that ring being passed onward.
Okay, so there's two. Gloin has arrived at the council, and I think he brought his son Gimli with him. Though
Yeah, he
Gimli
did.
doesn't do much at the council right now. Um, so Gloin's like, all right. So I'm here for two reasons. I don't know why y'all are here, but I got two problems. First problem. Uh, a lot of people have got it into their head that we should reconquer Moria. Um,
It turned out,
it was on its face a terrible idea, and he mentions that he's the one who's like, we delved too deep there, woke a nameless
yep,
fear.
yep.
Long have the
He does
vast
not
mansions lain
think
empty.
he does not think that this is a good idea. He's on
No,
team. Maybe we just leave Moria alone. It's more trouble than it's worth, but that doesn't quite happen.
but Balin listened to the whispers and resolved to go. And though Dain did not give leave willingly, he took with him Ori and Oin and many of our folk, and they went away south. That was nigh on 30 years ago, and for a while we had news and it seemed good. Then we didn't,
The
and now
end.
it seems bad.
Yeah, not so great.
But there was a
Then
second reason.
there
Yeah.
was a messenger to Dane. Uh, they're asking from Sauron, asking for some knowledge and assistance on a hobbit. You guys know of a hobbit. He was around here a few decades ago, and he happens to have a tiny little insubstantial, nothing happening ring. Like, no big deal, but we kind of want that back. And, it's not a big deal or anything, but if you refuse to help us, we will shit down your throat. We will fucking end you. But if you help us, we'll give you 3 of the dwarf rings. Don't think about where at least one of those would come from. And we'll give you Moria, which, as we established, maybe you don't want it, but we'll give it to you.
Well, I imagine they're going to give it to them in the sense that they're going to call off the Balrog.
Oh, I figured they'd just be like, and this is your problem now.
No,
Goodbye.
And we signed the piece of paper and we recognized it. No, I figure Sauron could probably...
Does Sauron know the Balrog is there?
I don't know. But
'Cause
if he did, he could probably pull some strings. They used to
Do you-
work for the same guy.
Yeah, do you think that, like... So first of all, are Balrog and Sauron on, like, the same tier of middle management heaven?
I think
Like,
Sauron is tougher.
Sauron is, like, the toughest of them, but on the same tier, or is he, like, a tier above?
I think Sauron is a tier above. So Gandalf kills the Balrog, right?
Yeah, that's true. Spoilers, Ben. How dare you?
I don't think... I think Tolkien, in his letters, he doesn't like to get into these, like, who's more powerful kinds of things.
Which one of them would be able to fight Vegeta, Saiyan Saga, pre-Great Ape, okay?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. So if we look at them through
What's
the
his
scouting,
power level?
Yeah. But I do think, in terms of, like, angelic hierarchy, Gandalf is not at all insignificant. He's up there. But Sauron is a very, very high tier Maya. I don't think Gandalf the White
versus Sauron no ring.
Yeah.
Who wins?
It could, like, Gandalf might be able to do it. But Sauron is not at all insignificant. And Gandalf, Tolkien mentions this a couple of times. Before Gandalf was Gandalf, he did not want to go on this mission. He was scared of Sauron.
Now, was that after he was originally defeated by Isildur that he was sent?
Yeah, he's sent well into the Third Age, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sauron's a big deal. Sauron is probably the toughest thing in Middle Earth.
Does Sauron, like, why wouldn't he go and, like, get that Balrog?
Preoccupied. Also, he doesn't need it. You have to keep in mind that Sauron only loses because of a fluke, chance of fate, divine intervention plan where Gollum bites off Frodo's finger and falls off the cliff. You do have to keep in mind, Sauron was going to win this thing. He was going to take everything. He's not in a bad position at all right now. He can leave the Balrog where it lays and still easily conquer Middle Earth.
Okay. This is why we need a nuclear deterrent.
There really is no underestimating how kind of screwed they are. And that's an interesting thing of Tolkien's writing. Like, this is I don't know, he doesn't like allegory, but there are certainly themes, and, like, one of the themes is you should resist evil even if you're screwed. And that comes up a couple of different times in this chapter.
Today was inauguration day, Ben.
I know.
So, next up, there's a long discussion about the forging of the ring and Moria's fall, Ben. I just put Ben history time next to that.
Okay, well, there's one thing I wanted to mention right
Okay.
off the bat, different from the movie. We've talked about this a little bit before,
It wasn't
but
called.
um, Elrond has a line where right after Gloin's finished telling his story,
Mr. Anderson.
Gloin basically says that, look, I was sent by the king of the dwarves to come here and first tell Bilbo he needs to go. He needs to run. They're coming. I see he was already here. Good job, Bilbo. But like, second, look, we're not going to join Sauron no matter what. Dwarves, we don't like him. Don't like what he's about. We don't like anyone. We wouldn't join anyone in anything ever anyway.
We
But-
barely even like each other.
Honestly, I'm kind of balling left. Like, so you don't have to worry about that, but you might low key have to worry about the Men of Dale.
Ooh,
Because
yeah.
Sauron, men do like to fight amongst each other, and Sauron is kind of supporting those other men. And he's going to try to stage a little coup there. So they might make a deal. And
It was a protest that got out of hand, Ben.
And Gloin's like, so I'm here now because of all this, and I'd like to know what this Sauron calls it, or Sauron's messenger calls it, the least of rings that he's looking for.
Yeah, it's a tiny little insignificant trinket.
It has sentimental value to Sauron. It was his grandmother's ring.
Yeah.
It she brought it from the old country, and he was going to give it to the woman he marries, and
and he just needs it back, and
Yeah.
and in exchange for that, he'll give you 3 rings of power with no strings attached whatsoever.
there is
And
not
a Balrog
physical
infested.
Yeah. There is no physical string attached to that ring. So,
Yeah.
So Gloin's like, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about what y'all are doing here. And Elrond says, that is the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I have not called you to me. He did in the movie. You are strangers from distant lands. You have come and are here met in this very nick of time by chance, as it may seem. Yet it is not so.
As it may seem.
Believe rather that it is so ordered that we, who sit here and none others, must now find counsel for the peril of the world. It's a little Christianity there for you. That's God's plan that we're all here. So, it is time for all these people, all these representatives of elves, dwarves, men, other men, hobbits,
to let the
Sam,
Age of Man
for some
happen.
reason.
Hell yeah.
It's time for us all to figure out what's going on. So, Elrond is like, I was there for most of this, so I'll start.
Yeah.
And of course, like most great video essayists, he begins 3,000 years ago.
Perfect.
It's the only way to properly understand the value of this ring. So, as we know, Sauron in the Second Age appeared to Celebrimbor and the elven smiths of Eregion as the Lord of Gifts. And he's like, hey guys, I've discovered this awesome new technique for making magic rings.
Oh.
And
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I would like to teach y'all how to make some magic rings. And together,
Wow.
maybe we can make some amazing rings that do cool shit.
Hell yeah. What a cool Lord of Gifts this guy is. I trust you immediately. Let's do it.
All right. So that went pretty well for a while. And then he finally says to Celebrimbor, hey, Celebrimbor, I just realized I left the oven on
Yeah, I gotta go.
at my apartment, and I gotta go and check on that. So I'll be back in like a couple of years. And then Celebrimbor is like, okay, that seems legit, and he keeps on trucking.
I'll make some really awesome rings while he's gone.
Yeah, he'll be really happy to see these when he gets back. So he makes 3 amazing rings that he's going to give to all the coolest elves. And as soon as he goes, like one day he's like wearing a ring, and then all of a sudden they hear this voice thundering in their heads. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all in the darkness. And then they take it off because that seems ominous.
Oh, shit.
And they realize that they were, quote,
all of them deceived.
And
damn it, the Lord of Gifts was going to betray us? I can't believe such a thing would even
it's
happen.
why we need to cut Social Security. A gift is never a gift. That's what you should remember.
I agree. And they say that they paid into the system, but like that money was used for your parents, you know? There's no vault with your money around. Your money's already been spent, so let's cut it
That
off
money was spent
now.
on bombs because they borrowed against the Social Security budget, which actually had a surplus, but never mind that.
No one needs to hear that.
So, some things happened. Even Elrond says it's a long tale full of deeds, both great and terrible. And
at one point, men tried to fight God. And he looks over at Aragorn and Boromir, like, didn't turn out too well, did it? You know?
Once they took off the rings and realized that they had been betrayed, Sauron was like, okay, new plan, kill them all. And he attacks Eregion. He lays waste to it. The gates of Moria are shut. There was friendship between the dwarves and the elves in that area, but the elves were overthrown and the dwarves sealed themselves in the mountain.
That's it's not a terrible idea.
No, it worked out well until it didn't.
Yeah, you just seal yourself in and you just keep digging downward. You dig yourself out by digging down.
And then Numenor, some stuff happened there. They had to come stay with us for a little while.
Some stuff happened, you know.
So the kings of men returned to Middle Earth. Now, of course, we could get it. We've talked a little bit about the Fallen.
Were there other men on the continent while Numenor? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. But
basically, the way it goes, I would say in the Silmarillion, is all men are kind of created at the same time. Like, so basically, all of humanity, wherever we find ourselves, Africa, Asia, whatever, we're all around the same time. It just so happened that this land of Middle Earth, this area that the map is drawn on, is where the elves and gods happen to spend most of their time, and that's where like all the powerful things happen.
Yeah, I know. Western Europe, I get it.
The men of Numenor wound up becoming like they have a civilization that I think Tolkien describes as Atlantean. They're very technologically advanced. It's kind of like how like
until the Orichalcos happened.
To give it a real world example, I'd say imagine like Egypt. And Egypt's got paper, they're building these gigantic megastructures.
Got bronze.
And meanwhile in Europe,
shitting on the ground right next to where
they're struggling to build a hut, and it's so like Numenor is just one of those civilizations that just happen to like get leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. But the faithful, the ones who did not make war on the gods, they left as soon as it looked like the vote was swinging in favor of we're going to make war on God. They were like, okay, I'm leaving. Get your boat, guys. We got to go. And they did.
Yeah, the pro fight God party was like, well, you don't like it, you could just leave. And they're like,
can we?
Okay.
Like, you're cool with that? Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
You promise?
Yeah, there's just, I mean, it would be cool if there was just some awesome, like, unspoiled, uninhabited continent that you could just go to when you got sick of the one you're living on. But I guess that's the Mars dream, yeah.
Yeah, Mars. We're going to Mars. With all that clean water and fresh air.
I want them to. I want that for them.
Yeah, me too. I just keep like, hurry up and go, man. You do this. Then he talks about Gil-galad and the Last Alliance. That was the opening of the Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah, that was the opening of the Lord of the Rings movie. So, Gil-galad is
He's the Elvish king, right?
he's the High King of the Noldor in Middle
Yeah.
Earth, and Elendil is, I believe, the king, basically the king of the men of the West. I would say he's probably the king of Arnor and Gondor, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's king of both, and then he
Yeah.
splits. His heir splits the
Yeah, Isildur and Anarion split,
yeah.
or they would have, but then that becomes unnecessary. So,
yeah.
all of them,
they had some plans. Is the point?
Yeah, they had plans. So Elendil, Elendil and his sons Isildur and Anarion, they become great lords. In the north, they make the realm of Arnor. In the south, they make the realm of Gondor. But Sauron attacks them as well after attacking Eregion, and that creates the last alliance of elves and men.
Which is what they called it at the time. It was a little weird. They're like, this is the last time we're doing this, okay? We're not friends after this.
It's interesting because Elrond drops a lot of lore here. So one of the things he says, I remember well the splendor of their banners. It recalled to me the glory of the elder days and the hosts of the Beleriand. So many great princes and captains were assembled, and yet not so many nor so fair as when Thangorodrim was broken.
Yeah, I was going to ask. He mentions Thangorodrim. What is a Thangorodrim?
So, I'll finish the quote. So Thangorodrim was broken, and the elves deemed that the evil was ended forever, and it was not so. So, what Elrond is saying, the Beleriand, is what was Middle Earth in the First Age. So before Morgoth was overthrown,
were men even in the First Age?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Yes. There are humans in the First Age. The Eldar, the elves, they awaken first.
But they're not like the main characters at all in the First Age, it sounds like.
The elves
like
are
all elves and gods and shit.
Yeah, the elves are absolutely the main characters because they're the ones that have great kingdoms. The humans are still kind of,
they're the ones shitting on the ground right next to where they sleep.
Well, they're not as long lived, so you don't wind up with with the elves, if you get like a great architect, like a guy who really knows how to build everything, he just knows that forever and he's always there and you could go talk to him. Humans, we got to learn this stuff over generations. The elves have a massive head start on us, and it's hard for us to catch up while the elves are there. If the elves take all the best resources,
so what we
and have
need
all
to
the best
do
land
is create a magical environmental crisis and force them to flee. That's genius.
But so
are there dwarves in the First Age?
Yes, there are dwarves in the First Age.
Okay.
All of the major things are there. There are orcs, there are dwarves, there are elves, there are men.
There are even hobbits?
No. Well, probably, but they're not mentioned. Hobbits were he wrote most of this stuff before he thought of hobbits. And there's, I think, one line that says hobbits are tiny men. Don't think too much about it.
Okay, I won't. Deal.
So that's what the Beleriand is. It's the large continent from the First Age. That continent got a lot smaller when a huge chunk of the western part of it flooded in a giant battle between gods, which was the breaking of Thangorodrim.
Okay.
Morgoth raised the mountains of Thangorodrim around his fortress of Angband. And I think it's even said that the mountains of the Thangorodrim are like the slag and excess of his industry. Like he was building so much stuff so fast that the accumulated waste piled into actual literal mountains.
Oh. Well, thankfully he took care of it for us too when he raised it. This is solid by him, you know? I think maybe we should worship him as a god instead, and maybe we should sail west and fight the fake ones, you know?
Well, many people would agree with you. That was definitely a popular position. So, um, well, and there is also another point where it's like, if if the devil is the only one who walks among men, then the devil is the only one who understands men, and he's able to much more easy. Like
Huh.
a lot of
So what you're saying is God needs to hang out with us more, right?
there.
Maybe he can come, play some Skyrim with me
Some
or
Skyrim with
whatever.
us, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting bit of Christian thought there on like you should be in the world. You should be an
Yeah.
example to others. You should be like the work needs done, and you need to meet the people where they are. A lot of Christians in their mega churches don't worry too much about that, but it was a thing for a little while.
Yeah.
So there's another thing going on here that Elrond is talking about where he says, so in the first age, there was this incredible alliance. All the heroes of an age gathered together to overthrow
And
Morgoth.
what race were they?
Elves,
Oh.
man. This is how the Numenorians become the Numenorians. This is the reward.
Oh,
they
that's
get.
right. They're
Yeah.
blessed with that because they fight in the battle,
Right.
and the gods are like, "Hey, you know what? You did us a solid. We'll do you a solid. We're gonna give you a little bit extra lifespan in Atlantis."
Yep.
And then they're like, "We're gonna repay you by someday trying to kill you. Thanks."
I've heard some people talk about this, and honest to God, dude, this might be a two-parter, but like,
no, it's just gonna be a 4-hour discussion, Ben.
I'm not editing that. So,
what's to edit? You just boost the volume and
yeah. So there's some thought on like Tolkien tries to explain a couple of times why the elves should go to Valinor and the men should stay in Middle Earth. And it relates to the concepts of like life and death and eternity and all that stuff. On a certain
the men are men and the elves are cowards.
Well, in Middle Earth, everything is constantly changing. The seasons change. Things die and are reborn. Forests go away, they come back. There's just all this constant death and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth.
And
Humans
the elves are pretty static.
Yeah, humans fit nicely into that cycle. The elves do not. For them, that is exhausting. And likewise, Tolkien would argue that eternity would exhaust men. Like,
so is the West like eternally summer or spring or something?
Yeah, it's basically just always not. What the 3 Elven rings are doing, like what Elrond is doing with Rivendell and what Galadriel is doing with Lothlorien, how they're basically these unchanging realms of like paradise and bliss, where nothing ever goes wrong and nothing ever really changes, and they just always look like these pristine kingdoms.
Would the Greyhavens look like that if that guy didn't give his ring to Gandalf?
He could use it to do that, but I don't think he's particularly interested. He is an interesting character. Círdan is worth looking at by himself and not in this chapter because there's too much. But Círdan, to make a long story short, wants to go to Valinor. He has wanted to go to Valinor for a very, very long time.
Why don't you just go?
He is the guy who makes the ships.
You can't trade someone else to make ships?
It's I don't want to get into the whole thing, but it's not his fate.
God damn it.
He goes at the end. That's when he goes. He's putting aside what he wants to do to fulfill a higher calling.
Wow.
Which is another
what a Chad.
What a Chad. He's even got the beard. Strong jaw on that one. So Elrond is talking here about how like we had this amazing alliance in the first age, and then in the second age, we also kind of like we scraped together
It was
enough
all right.
people
Yeah.
to kind of be reminiscent of that.
Maybe not as good as the first time around, but like still a solid, like, we did our best and we won. So
But now the elves are leaving, the
yeah, they
humans
are.
are fractured. There is no uniting king. There is no more Numenor. We are weaker than we've ever been. And like, this is a theme in Tolkien's thing. It is a world in decay. It is a world in need of renewal. We're going to keep fighting the good fight, the long defeat, but without, this is the Christian theology of it, without some kind of divine intervention and renewal, this is just doomed to fade out and fail. But our role in all this is to keep it going as long as it fucking can. So we're going to try. And that's not the most inspiring speech, but
Renewal, how so? Like, is this going to be like the divines need to do something, or is it like Aragorn, get on that throne, unite some men?
in Tolkien's mythology, and I believe in Tolkien's personal belief, and this is another thing in Christianity. So a lot of Christianity has gotten kind of metaphysical, but Jewish theology is a little more rooted in like the body. Like the idea of the body and spirit being different things is kind of new. I've talked about this before, but like there is a thought that in Christianity, when Judgment Day comes and Jesus comes back and the devil is finally overthrown and all of that stuff happens, the kingdom of heaven could physically be remade on earth. Like earth could be perfected. We could be perfected. That second coming would be like God made the world. And then this series of events up until the second coming is somehow what's needed to create perfection.
And Jesus will lower our grocery prices.
I assume that would be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to, right?
I don't know how. Yeah. I mean, he's going to have to do something about rent too.
Yeah.
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 So in Tolkien, there would be a second Music of the Ainur, where the first Music of the Ainur sing the world into being, and in the second Music of the Ainur, the children of Iluvatar, elves and men, will participate.
And Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, he's there. He's gonna have a solo, I think.
He has to.
He's gonna have a sick Neil Peart drum solo. It's gonna go on for like 4 minutes. And Coldberry can like Yoko Ono in the corner. But yeah, so then Elrond goes on to tell the story of how we fought the good fight. So we attacked Sauron. He eventually takes the field. He then immediately murders our two strongest fighters. That was a little disconcerting. But fortunately, Isildur was there, and Gil-galad and Elendil kind of softened Sauron up for him.
Yeah.
And I think Elendil falls on his sword and breaks it, and then in the tussle, Sauron somehow gets like knocked over or something, and then it's really not as epic as maybe it could be.
Can you imagine that? The opening scene of Lord of the Rings, Sauron like falls over and they get tangled up in each other and his ring gets chopped off.
And I think that's kind of what happens in Isildur's like feeling around, like desperate for something. He grabs the hilt shard of his father's sword and cuts, just flails, and manages to cut Sauron's hand.
And when CinemaSins or whatever is like, well, why did he have his hand outstretched? And it's like, well, it's a visual medium, and like otherwise, the alternative is Sauron and Isildur are going to fall and get tangled up in each other and kind of do a little bit of a slap fight before Isildur accidentally gets
I
his...
would happily give the CinemaSins guy half a sword and tell him to try to take a ring off my hand and see if he can do it any better. I would love nothing more than to wrestle that man.
So yeah, so that's that we saved the day, and Elrond was there when man failed. Ben.
Yeah, that's not what he says. So he cuts the ring off Sauron's hand and takes it for his own. And at this, Boromir is just like, "Whoa, shut up! What? That's what happened to the ring? Everybody in Gondor has been wondering what the hell happened to that ring. We thought it was just like gone, but it turns out that Isildur took the Great Ring." And he says, and I assume this is Old English, but it sounds kind of like something I would say. "That is tidings, indeed. That is tidings."
Yeah, it's like saying that's tight, dog.
Shouldn't it be those are tidings? I mean, Tolkien would know. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
That is tidings.
So this is what Elrond actually
Mazel
has.
tov, Elrond.
This is what Elrond actually has to say about Isildur taking the ring. Isildur,
it's very nonchalant.
yeah, Isildur took it. It should have been cast then into Orodruin's fire, nigh at hand where it was made. But few marked what Isildur did. He alone stood by his father in that last mortal contest, and by Gil-galad only Círdan stood. And I was also there, Elrond.
I was also there. Just a minute. Just wanna check my story real quick with you, Galdor. You don't know about what happened, right? Okay, yeah, I was there.
So,
Don't ask Círdan; he might say something differently, but I was definitely there.
Elrond and Círdan tried to tell Isildur it would be better to throw that ring into Orodruin.
Yeah, he
right
didn't
now.
walk with him all the way up to the fire and then go, "Okay, I guess I'll just watch you leave." Isildur is like, "No, this is Weregold. Weregeld.
Yeah.
Werewolf gold. This is mine now."
It's war gold.
Yeah,
It's
this is
it's
mine
the
now.
price you pay. Weregild, we've talked about this. It's the price you would pay if you killed somebody wrongly and you didn't want to get stuck in the cycle of revenge. You can pay a fine.
Yeah,
So
this
Isildur
is mine.
Isildur says
Sauron
he'll
paid
take
it
it
to me.
Yeah, he'll take it as Weregild for his father and his brother. And then we were kind of stuck because this is a question people have, like, why didn't Elrond just kill him?
Right in front of all of his people, the
Right.
king of all
Yeah,
men.
Yeah.
It would definitely be a humongous betrayal to murder your ally in the field of battle in front of everyone. And you can try to explain, like, well, he had the ring. It's like, well, like, you have it now.
Like the farmer who got called up to battle knows what the fuck the ring is.
Yeah, all they know is Isildur saved the day and then got stabbed in the back by Elrond.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be what the kids call a good look, and also the ring would probably love that. You take the ring by murder, you're probably not off to a good start, as Isildur will find out. Because after that, he goes to Gondor for a minute, writes a scroll, teaches a kid how to be king, and then dies unceremoniously in the Gladden Fields where he's killed by orcs.
Yeah.
So that's then Elrond's like, okay,
That was my turn.
yep, that was my turn. So there was one other thing I wanted to mention was after why don't they know about this story in Gondor? Well, you see, so one-sided was the ass kicking at the Gladden Fields that only 3 men survived to tell the tale, and one of them happened to carry the broken shards of Narsil, the sword of Elendil, to Rivendell, to the new High King, Valendil, who was a child being fostered by Elrond. And they're like, well, here's your dad's sword, buddy. We need you to save all of the kingdoms of men.
Yeah.
He went away for a while and dwelt at Fornost. Those are the people that gave the hobbits the Shire. Moving right along. In the south, the kingdom of Gondor endured longer than the kingdom in the north. We've talked about the failing of the kingdom of the north at length.
Is that what? Hold on. They had a different name for it.
Fornost is a place within Arnor.
Minas Arnor. I've never heard of it called that, but I'm guessing it's kind of the same way. It's Minas
No,
Tirith.
you're thinking of Minas. I'm sorry, but you're thinking of Minas Anor.
Anor.
Arnor
Oh,
is
my
something
bad.
else.
So so my question is, what the fuck is Minas Anor then?
That was a tower where they had a guard, and it would become Minas Tirith. It would become the city of Minas Tirith.
Okay.
After, so the basically the capital, or like the main city of Gondor was
Is
Minas Ithil.
what the hell is that? Is that the one
That,
that becomes Minas Morgul?
yes, that was taken over by Sauron's forces, and
And
it
then
became Minas Morgul.
Osgiliath is the capital that's been taken recently,
Yeah,
and
so
now they're in Minas Tirith.
so Osgiliath sits in the middle of Minas Morgul now and Minas Tirith.
And there's a river running through the city.
Yeah, and
Okay,
when
and that's where
Minas,
Faramir is or was
in the movie, that's where Faramir is
in the
stationed.
movie, and yeah, it doesn't end well for them.
Yeah, in the book, Faramir and Boromir were there, and they both just barely survive. I think there are 4 people that survive, and Boromir tells it pretty humbly. He's like, 4 people survived by like barely swimming away, and it was me, my brother, and 2 other guys. Tolkien always picks these weird numbers. Like, I don't know why it was 2 other guys, but like we had 2 bros.
Yeah.
So
What you gonna do?
he goes on a little bit about how the men of Minas Tirith and Gondor still defy the enemies. They still hold that territory, keeping
Yeah.
keeping Mordor at bay.
I just wrote history lesson on the realms of man.
Um,
And I wrote Minas Morgul, Minas Tirith, Osgiliath, the tree, lesser men gain into the Numenorian gene pool.
yeah, that was kind of a little. Yeah, I don't think Tolkien would say that today.
Some betas were getting into that alpha gene pool, you know what I mean?
So I
It's
should
not
mention
eugenics because I'm calling it something else.
the white tree.
Yeah, you should.
Why's it got to be a white tree? I know. There in the courts of the king grew a white tree. From the seed of that tree, which Isildur brought over the deep waters, and the seed of that tree before came from Arisea, and before that, out of the uttermost west, in the day before days, when the world was young. So, the tree of Gondor, that tree that they say blooms when you get a king in the movie, that's a very important tree. When they say it comes from Arisea, Arisea is one of the, I think it's probably the easternmost of the Valinorian elf cities. And the elves of Arisea traded with the men of Numenor, and the seed they brought them came from Valinor itself. So this is a seed that has existed longer than the sun. That's what he means when he says "in the day before days." This is from the time of the 2 trees. This is a very big deal. This is a holy tree, a very holy tree. Elrond talks a little bit about how Gondor is doing a great job over there. And then
Boromir.
Boromir jumps up and he's like, "Well,
You're fucking welcome."
yeah, no, he does. He gives that he gives that tone. But he tells an interesting story. So the reason Boromir's here is because things are getting worse. They have been losing a lot of fights. Mordor has allied with the Easterlings and the Haradrim.
Who are the Haradrim?
They're the southern men.
Ow.
Probably, it's tough to say. I can't remember. if we're talking about our actual Earth, I don't know if this would be people from like continent of Europe or if they would be from Africa. I don't really know. I think it would be Africa
It's whatever your
or the
racism
mid.
wants it to be. Your
Yeah,
preconceived notions can fit whatever you want.
it's true. I mean, of all the stuff in Tolkien, this is probably the stuff that gets the most questionable. Um, so he's talking about how they're losing because of this, and even worse, if that weren't enough, we lost Osgiliath, the ruins of Osgiliath. They lost those because a new power came onto the field. Some said that it could be seen like a great black horseman, a dark shadow under the
Gasp.
moon. Wherever he came, a madness filled our foes, but fear fell on our boldest, so that horse and man gave way and fled. Only a remnant of our eastern force came back, destroying the last bridge that stood amidst the ruins of Osgiliath. So they tried. All they managed to do was destroy a bridge that would have prevented the enemy from coming further. But some like magical terror is being fielded
What could it
by
be?
Mordor now.
And they're like, well, you don't have to worry about that for a little while at least. We decided to hit them with an entire river. So yeah, I have a question about this next part I think you're about to talk about. I think this is definitely the Ben episode because of all the lore dumping.
Yeah. So he goes on to say that only from Rohan now will any men ride to us when we call. So that's another thing the movie does, that like there's this feud between Gondor and Rohan, but they're actually super tight.
Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell, Ben?
Dealing with a giant demon horseman. We've got stuff going on, man. I don't know what to tell you. So this is where Boromir finally gets to the point. In this evil hour, I have come on an errand over many dangerous leagues to Elrond. 110 days I have journeyed all alone. He actually didn't know where Rivendell was. That's not, I'm not making that up. That's true. He had to look for it.
So his dad or did anyone else there know?
They knew like about where it was, but they did not know the exact location of Rivendell, which makes sense because I don't think Sauron really does either. Part of the reason Rivendell has stood for so long is because it's kind of hard to find. And I think they mentioned that even in The Hobbit, that if Gandalf wasn't with them, they probably wouldn't have found it.
Yeah, I remember that.
So this is where Boromir mentions that on the eve of the sudden assault on Osgiliath, a dream came to my brother in a troubled sleep. And afterwards, a like dream came off to him again, and once to me. I think it is important to note here that Faramir is the one who gets the dream.
Yeah, it's almost like he should have been on the quest.
Faramir I've talked about this several times, but Faramir in the books is a much better character. He is arguably, like, aside from Aragorn, he is arguably like the best human being in the books, and you do not get that from the movies at all. They do him real dirty. So this is what the dream is. The eastern sky grew dark, and there was a growing thunder, but in the west, Valinor, a pale light lingered, and out of it I heard a voice, remote but clear, crying, "Seek for the sword that was broken. In Emladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul's spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand." And Boromir's like, so that was really confusing to me. I couldn't figure out what that meant. So we talked to our father, Denethor.
Right? And he ate some food in front of us in a really disgusting way, and he was kind of a mean, crotchety asshole, and
Well, he is
he
kind of a
promised he would never set us on fire. He was very clear about that.
he is kind of a mean, crotchety asshole still, but he's not a
Oh, yeah.
raving lunatic. So Denethor, Lord of Minas Tirith, wise in the lore of Gondor, he would say only this: that Imladris was of old the name among the elves of a far northern dale, Rivendell. Imladris is where Elrond built his Rivendell. So they don't know where Rivendell is. They just know that a long time ago, when last they have books from, um, that's where Imladris was. That's why Boromir doesn't really know where it is. And Faramir wanted to go immediately and look for Imladris, but the way was full of doubt and danger, and I took the journey upon myself. Boromir is the better warrior.
Yeah.
Faramir is kind of Faramir is a very capable warrior, but he's more of a book
But
guy.
he's no Boromir, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there is some of that. Like that legitimately is like Boromir's the jock, and Faramir is the brain.
One of them lifts, one of them doesn't. Okay? That's all there is to it. Sorry. So, a few questions.
Yeah.
Who gave him this dream?
I have two theories. I actually have notes in my book about this.
Okay.
My personal theory, and I don't know if like other Tolkien people have like know a confident answer to this, but my guess would be it was Mandos.
Is that Manwë?
No.
Oh, this is a different god who has a very similar name.
So the halls of Mandos are where the dead go. It's like Hades. It's the place and the guy. Mandos he's got two roles. He's kind of the keeper of the dead, and he is the I forget how he phrases it, but he's the doomsayer of the Valar. So of all the Valar, Manwë is kind of the silent stranger. He does not talk often. He does not leave the halls of Mandos often. But when he does, you're about to get some sort of prophecy or insight into the plan. And when Tolkien uses the word doom, it's an archaic version of the word. So in modern English, doom is almost always negative. If it is something's doom to do something, you would think it's their dark fate to do something. But in the way Tolkien's using it, doom does not mean negative. It just means what's going to happen. So when Mandos talks, he's telling you the future. He's telling you what's going to happen. Mandos is one of the ones who pops out, like when we talked about Feanor wanting to come back to Middle Earth to go get the Silmarils.
Oh, he's the guy who's like, maybe don't. Maybe that'd be a really bad decision.
Once they do it, Mandos pops up to say, I forget his exact words, but he's like, you're only going to find misery in Middle Earth. And after Mandos speaks his words, honestly, some of them turn back.
Yeah, that's a solid decision,
Yeah.
you know? If a god comes to you and is like, yeah, if you do this, you're nothing but misery and destruction. You're gonna get fucked big time. They're like, you know what? Maybe I don't fight Satan. You know, maybe I don't challenge that guy to a fist fight.
Now, ultimately, Manwë is the king of the Valar. He has the final say. He takes counsel, but somebody has to make a decision. Manwë can override Mandos in making a decision. But Mandos, I think, knows more of the future than just about anyone else. Manwë, though, can speak directly to Iluvatar if he needs to. So It could have been. It could be Mandos or Manwë. It's just to
This is
me.
Mandos' thing.
Yeah, a prophetic dream sounds like Mandos is that's his
So did
shtick.
Mandos also give dreams to Frodo?
Could be.
Okay. And how about, was Faramir the one who was supposed to make that journey and go to Rivendell?
Well, considering that Boromir, I don't think he's lying about this. That Boromir also had the journey at least once. I think. I think the message is for both of them, because Faramir is going to have his part to play in this too. Like Faramir is also going to wind up supporting Aragorn as king. So I think that's what Mandos is saying is you need to follow this guy. When this guy comes, you need to do whatever he asks.
Okay. But Boromir kind of doubts Aragorn when Aragorn talks about the sword.
They get off on an interesting foot. I would say Boromir certainly does not doubt Aragorn as much as he does in the movies. So they bring out the ring, and Aragorn stands up. Now, in the movie, Aragorn is a reluctant king. He's afraid he's going to become Isildur, which is a terrible thing in the
Yeah.
movie.
Again, they're like, you're no Isildur, you're just his heir in the book. It's like, oh, it would be really great if we had an Isildur right about now.
And Legolas stands up and defends Aragorn and says, "You owe him your allegiance." Blah blah blah. In this,
Yeah, and fucking
Frodo,
Isildur barely had time to be corrupted by the ring, dude. He came back, wrote a scroll, and then went off to die.
yeah. So in this, Frodo comes out, shows the ring, fulfilling a part of the dream.
I love this part too, because at some point in here, he's like, "Oh, well, Aragorn, this ring belongs to you then." And Aragorn's like, "Nah, that shit will eat your soul. You don't claim possession of it, and you hold on to it.
Don't put that voodoo on me, Frodo.
Yeah, you keep that shit away from me."
And Elrond says, "Behold, a halfling holding Isildur's bane, just like your dream. Isn't that neat?" And then Aragorn stands up and says, "I will fulfill the other part of your dream, because the sword that was broken is the sword of Elendil, and I have it right here. I'm Isildur's heir. I'm the heir of Elendil. I'm of the north, of the northern kingdom. His heirs have handed this down from father to son and passed on this oral tradition that when the ring was found, this blade would be reforged, and we would take our rightful place and lead men to victory, over the darkness." And so he says to Boromir, "So, what do you have to say to that? Pretty cool, huh, Boromir?" And Boromir says, "Far now in the movie, of course, Boromir says Gondor has no king, Gondor needs no king, and then sits down pointedly. In this, he says, I was not sent to beg any boon, but to seek only the meaning of a riddle. Yet we are hard pressed, and the sword of Elendil would be a help beyond our hope, if such a thing could indeed return out of the shadows of the past." And he looked at Aragorn, but doubt was in his eyes. And that, to me, is a far cry from Gondor has no king, Gondor needs no king.
Yeah,
That's like, if you could do that,
yeah, I'll give you a crown right now.
Yeah.
You want to go kill the Dark Lord? Let's go for it, man. I'll believe it when I see it, but you want to give it a shot,
And then Bilbo, when Aragorn's being doubted, Bilbo doesn't like it when you doubt his boy, and he stands up and starts saying some Led Zeppelin lyrics. He says, "All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring, renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king. To which Boromir is like, what the fuck? Did you just make that up? Did you just do that right now? That's awesome.
Nah, I stayed up all night. I mean, yes. Yes. Made it up just now.
Aragorn is like, okay, that is dope. And I am going to be using that when I announce that I'm king. I'm going to put that in all the king announcements and all the invitations to my coronation. I think he actually does, by the way. I think that's a thing. That's like the one of Bilbo's poems that somebody finally liked. And then Aragorn is like, Boromir, look, I don't blame you for doubting me. And yeah, it's true. Little do I resemble the figures of Elendil and Isildur, especially as they are carven in their majesty in the halls of Denethor.
Yeah, you didn't see them in their final moments.
I
Elendil cried like a bitch.
I am but the heir of Isildur, not
Yeah.
Isildur himself.
That's unfortunate. We could really use one of those Isildurs around here.
That's where they stole that line from. You're Isildur's heir, not Isildur himself.
And the meaning is the exact opposite in the movie.
Yes, the meaning is Aragorn saying, "Look, I know I'm not Isildur come again. I'm not Isildur. I know that's what we need right now." Because if you remember, his crowning achievement was not taking the ring. His crowning achievement was killing Sauron. And so he is remembered, perhaps surprisingly, fondly, like all those dumbass isekai about like the Demon King being killed. This is the guy. This is your guy that you're born as. Yeah, he goes on to say like, Boromir, you've talked a lot of, I'm going to frankly say, shit about everything Gondor does for everybody, but let me put you on some game here, my friend. If it weren't for the Rangers in the North, there wouldn't be a fucking North. Okay. I don't know where you get off thinking like every orc comes through Gondor to get here. Okay. You ain't the border patrol.
Yeah. I just wrote Aragorn's like, yeah, Gondor is cool, I guess, but the Dunedain are fucking legends.
Yeah. If it's not for the Dunedain, everybody's fucked. There is no peace. So you could just shut your mouth on that point, bud. And Boromir's like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. And then Elrond's like, okay, so we've been recording for like an hour and 10 minutes. So I think we need to get to Bilbo's portion. And he says, Bilbo, I think you're going to need to tell your part. And Tolkien, again, insecure about the retcon in The Hobbit, make sure to have Bilbo say,
he brings us up twice in this chapter alone.
I will do as you bid, but I will now tell the true story. And if some here have heard me tell it otherwise, it takes a sidelong look at Gloin, I ask them to forget it and forgive me. I only wished to claim the treasure as my very own in those days and to be rid of the name of thief that was put on me. That's not true. That's not true. That's not why you did it. You're still lying, Bilbo. You're still lying to yourself. But then Bilbo tells the Hobbit, I'm not going to read the Hobbit again. And then,
all right, everyone, stop the record this episode real quick. Go listen to all those episodes and come back.
Yeah, I mean, at least Riddles in the Dark. Go listen to Riddles in the Dark.
Yeah.
We covered it in some detail. So that's when Galador is like, okay.
No, Frodo tells his tale too.
Yeah, Frodo tells his tale. His tale.
So go listen to all those episodes.
Yeah, I just told Frodo's tale. I don't care about that. So Galador is like, all right. We got a ring. Undeniably a magic ring.
You know who's an expert?
I am just wondering, I'm sitting here as Galador wondering, this guy's such a bureaucrat. This guy, I've been in so many meetings with this fucking guy. Where he's like, I'm just wondering if we have the right points of contact in this meeting, because I think Sauron is the SME on ring making. So I'm just wondering why Sauron wasn't invited to this meeting.
I think you're confusing your characters.
Or yes, I know why Sauron wasn't invited to this meeting.
Yeah. There's a reason why Sauron's not
I'm
here.
confused why Saruman. I've made the mistake everyone who encounters this story for the first time made.
Yes, as a kid, I was also like, wait, Sauron and Saruman, different people.
Buddy,
Okay.
it took me till like this fucking reading to realize Nazg is the black speech word for ring. And they're called Nazgul because they're ring wraiths.
Okay. But yeah, that guy was like, why is Saruman the expert on rings? Why is he not here?
And that's when Gandalf stands up and says, this is going to be a two-parter.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door which began. Now far ahead the road is gone, and I must follow it, if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say.